If winning a world championship in one wrestling promotion is difficult, imagine being able to say that you were the top champion in 3 separate wrestling promotions. It is undoubtedly a fantastic accomplishment, especially if we are talking about 3 top promotions where the best wrestlers in the world work. Throughout the history of wrestling, there have been some wrestlers who have worked incredibly hard and have the privilege to say that they have captured the World Championship in 3 different companies. In fact, one of these wrestlers was World Champion in WWE, WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, which are arguably the greatest wrestling companies of all time, although AEW is on their way to making their claim to being in that top 3. Welcome to Honor Wrestling Club, and in today's video we'll be counting down 10 wrestlers who were world champions in 3 different promotions. However, before we crack on with the list, I'd just like to take a moment to firstly welcome you to Honor Wrestling Club. We really do appreciate you joining our club. However, before we crack on with the list, I'd just like to take a moment to ask you to click the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell if you are new here. And be sure to leave a comment down below. Who do you think is the best wrestler to have won a world championship in 3 separate promotions? Now, without further ado, let's crack on with the list with number 10, Hulk Hogan, who won the world championship in WWE, WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Hulk Hogan, possibly the first person who appears when you ask a non-wrestling fan to name a wrestler, is a 13-time major world championship across his career, with 6 of those being in WWE, 6 in WCW and 1 in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Hulk Hogan won his first championship in New Japan Pro Wrestling in 1983 when he won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship after defeating Antonio Inoki. Hogan then went on to WWE and won 5 world titles, making him the greatest wrestler in the world at that time. Eventually he would join WCW and capture the World Heavyweight Championship a total of 6 times. To top it off, Hogan would add another world title reign in 2002. However, this was disastrous, so let's not talk about that bit. However, Hogan has the honour of being the only wrestler in history to win the World Championship in WWE, WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. So there's a little feat for Terry to brag about on Twitter. In number 9, we have Chris Jericho, who has been world champion in WWE, AEW and Ring of Honor. And Jericho has a total of 8 world title reigns to his name. Chris Jericho also won titles in WWE, WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, but was unable to win the world title in either WCW or New Japan Pro Wrestling. However, Jericho can say that he was world champion in WWE, AEW and Ring of Honor, and also in a minor promotion such as Canadian Rocky Mountain Wrestling. However, it must be admitted that Jericho is not exactly the wrestler that comes to mind when talking about world champions, since most of his reigns were not particularly outstanding. He would hold a world title in WWE 6 times, in AEW he would hold it once, and in Ring of Honor he would hold the world title once. In number 8 we have AJ Styles, who won the world championship in TNA, New Japan Pro Wrestling and WWE. And he's also won world titles in minor independent promotions. AJ Styles has had a, no pun intended here, phenomenal career. He's been successful everywhere he has gone, has had fantastic matches, has won world titles, and most importantly of all, has endeared himself to the fans. Styles was world champion in smaller promotions such as Christian Wrestling Entertainment, Family Wrestling Entertainment, IPW Hardcore Wrestling, and one you may have heard of here, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. But most importantly, he managed to capture the world championship in big promotions such as 2 times in WWE, 5 times in TNA, and twice in New Japan Pro Wrestling. In number 7, we have Austin Aries, who has been world champion across several different promotions. And Austin Aries once held 5 world titles at the same time. Austin Aries was unsuccessful on the biggest stages, but he was a monster on the independent circuit. In fact, in 2018, Aries would sweep up the independent circuit like he's playing Supermarket Sweep, and would hold 5 world titles at the same time. These would be the Impact World Title, the Defiant World Title, the IPW World Title, the WSW Heavyweight Title, and the Defy World Title. What Aries did was insane, and that's why he was called the Belt Collector. Overall, Aries is regarded as an excellent worker. However, his ego and attitude problems meant that he would not succeed in bigger promotions. In number 6, we have Mercedes Monet, who's won women's world titles in WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling and CW. Formerly known as Sasha Banks, she has 6 world titles during her time in WWE, as well as once in New Japan Pro Wrestling and once in CW. When Sasha Banks was in WWE, the titles didn't exactly have the word world written in them, as they were called the Raw Women's Championship, the SmackDown Women's Championship, the NXT Women's Championship, or for a brief window in 2015, the Divas Championship. However, they still count as world titles. Banks would win the Raw Women's World Title 5 times and the SmackDown Women's World Title once. In 2023, following her dubious exit from WWE, competing as Mercedes Monet, she would win the IGPW Women's World Championship. Few know this, but Mercedes also won the Women's World Title in Chaotic Wrestling before being assigned to WWE in 2012. And, as we would expect, Mercedes is probably going to be able to say that she is a AEW Women's World Champion to her resume in the future. In number 5, we have Kenny Omega, who's been World Champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling, AEW and Impact. Kenny Omega is one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time, and his legacy will always be about his incredible work in the ring. Therefore, fans will probably not remember Omega as a world champion, although he has won world titles across several promotions, including New Japan Pro Wrestling, All Elite Wrestling, and Impact Wrestling. It's also worth mentioning that Omega was a world champion in several smaller promotions, but again, Omega's title reigns are not what people will remember about him. Instead, it is probably his matches with Kazuchika Okada that people will remember. In number 4, we have CM Punk, who, like Chris Jericho, has won world championships in WWE, AEW and Ring of Honor, and he has 10 world titles throughout his career in various promotions. He managed to win 6 world titles in WWE, including an ECW World Heavyweight Championship, having the best moments of his career at Money in the Bank 2011. In 2005, Punk would win the ROH World title as a youngster. And in 2022, Punk has 2 AEW World Championships to his name, proving he still had it. In addition, Punk also won several world titles across other independent promotions. In number 3, we have Jon Moxley, who has been world champion in WWE, AEW and HWA, and has also won the New Japan Pro Wrestling Championship. Obviously, the most prestigious title that Jon Moxley won is the WWE Championship. He did it back in 2016, back when he was known as Dean Ambrose. Moxley, on the other hand, is the wrestler who has had the most reigns with the AEW World Championship, and has arguably been the belt's most important champion as well, having captured it an illustrious 3 times. Moxley has won other world titles in smaller promotions such as Heartland Wrestling Association, Game Changer Wrestling, or Full Impact Pro. In number 2, we have Samoa Joe, who has won world titles in AEW, TNA and Ring of Honor, although he would never hold a world title in WWE, and that is a damn shame. Fans often ask why Samoa Joe never won a world championship in WWE, and rightfully so, because he had everything it took to win the big one. However, for some reason, Vince McMahon would never pull the trigger on Joe, who spent several months on the injured list in his time in WWE. Nevertheless, Samoa Joe can still say he was a world champion in 3 different wrestling promotions. Joe won the world title in Ring of Honor in 2003, won the TNA World Heavyweight title in 2008, and he's a former AEW world champion. And in at number 1, we have Ric Flair, who was world champion in WWE, WCW and the NWA. And you may or may not know this, but Ric Flair is an, in air quotes, 16-time world champion, tying with John Cena for the most. Ric Flair, along with John Cena, holds the record for most World Championship reigns in wrestling history, with 16. According to official records, Flair was an 8-time World Champion in the champion. Ric Flair was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, a true World Champion, so it is not surprising at all that he is one of the wrestlers who were World Champions in 3 different promotions. And there you have it, there's our list. What did you think? Who do you think is the most surprising wrestler to have been World Champion in 3 different promotions? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click the subscribe button and the notification bell to make sure you never miss out on any other fun content we produce here at Honor Wrestling Club. However, until next time, I'd just like to thank you for watching, and welcome to the club.